It's ended careers and certainly killed ambitions, and depending on who you ask, also stopped some really objectionable people in their tracks. So called cancel culture has people debating the power of place in society. Dino Sossi looked at the phenomenon in a recent article that appeared on Collingwood today. It's titled, Can We Cancel Culture? He's a researcher and teacher of media and social media. Welcome to the show, Dino.
Manjula, it's great to be with you.
For those who may be unfamiliar with the term, describe what that is, cancel culture.
In an online context, cancel culture occurs when a group of individuals who feel offended or oppressed, they use the power of the internet to remove a person from a position or lower their social standing.
What are the roots of this? I mean, it seems to be just huge over the last 2 to 3 years. I keep reading about it in social media, keep reading articles about it. How far does it go back?
I was doing sort of the personal dating and math to it. It goes back now, the idea of it, about 40 years to 1981. The legendary Chic guitarist Nile Rodgers did this song, Your Love Is Cancelled, which is quite a friendly song, but it's about a date that went awry. Then you fast forward about a decade later, and Wesley Snipes, in the iconic movie New Jack City, he dumped his girlfriend and used that phrase in a kind of definitely a sexist way. And then it kind of sort of went dormant for a while. And then over the past 5 to 10 years, in the aftermath of massive social movements like Arab Spring, Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, and Me Too, it's really taken up traction. And then I've been thinking, especially about the last year, a lot of people are inside because of COVID. So you have a lot of raw people on edge. Social media has a lot of short emotional outbursts. And then you have these engagement algorithms which prioritize people being outraged. And put those things all together, and that's an explosion of cancel culture.
Well, it's interesting that if you look at this idea of punishing people for inappropriate actions or behaviors one may simply disagree with, that has been around for a long time. Why have we given it this term, and why do we talk about that sense of punishment as a very current phenomenon?
I just think it's because of the way that social media it prizes, again, these short emotional outbursts. And I think, again, due to COVID and some of the frustrations people are feeling, due to the massive social inequality and income inequality, I think it's really frustrated people. And because of COVID forcing so many people indoors, and so many people before that were using their devices, and now it's people sitting frustrated in front of their keyboards. And I think the easiest way in a really complex world where it's really difficult to change things, it's much easier, much more emotionally satisfying just to write something that's canceling.
It's interesting to think that both President Trump and President Obama agree. They actually agree on their position on cancel culture. They both criticized cancel culture. What impact do you think cancel culture is having on our culture as a whole?
I think it's definitely made it more coarse. I think the over the past year, you've seen just these really sad scenes of people being outraged on airplanes, in restaurants, even in parks, and I find more people are on edge. I think it's emboldened people to bring out some of their worst instincts online, and then unfortunately I think our online behavior often transcends into our offline behavior. And again, I think it's just given license to people to be able to express themselves, and again, some of their worst impulses really quickly, which I think is not good for our culture at all.
Do you think it threatens free speech?
I think it's had a sort of a dual impact on free speech. I think if you're part of the mass that engages in the canceling, it actually allows you to have, it amplifies your ability to speak. However, if you're on the wrong side of that equation, it completely quiets, and based on the term, it actually cancels you. And again, moderating those two impulses is really difficult.
Now, I wonder if there's any story that stands out to you from the last, I would say, year of someone getting canceled, in case anyone's wondering what it looks like.
I think the best example, because it shines all of the weird absurdities and perversities of cancel culture. There's a woman named Alexa McCammond. She's in her late 20s now. She had a rapidly rising journalism career. She's doing really great. She was a political reporter at Axios. She's a fixture on the morning cable news programs. And then this past March, it was revealed that a bunch of her tweets that they were racist, bigoted, and homophobic. So the staff found out for her new job at Teen Vogue, she was named to be the editor-in-chief. The staff complained, and she lost her job before she even started. And then these tweets weren't from now when she's in her late 20s. They were from back when she was 17 or 18 years old. And then the most absurd part of it is that one of the people who accused her of using these racist tweets, she herself engaged in racist tweets. And then even worse, that person was actually a social media manager for Teen Vogue. So if someone should know the parameters of what's good and not online, it's probably a social media manager.
What worries you about this sort of phenomena, the idea of cancel culture?
I think the thing I'm worried most about is it's been really effective, which is really good if you have like a pro-social thing that you're fighting against. However, I think it's made people emboldened in a way that, again, it's coarsened our culture. It's when you're in the crosshairs, it's not like a court of law where there's evidentiary burdens of proof, due process. Once you're accused, it seems to sort of become where you're guilty of what that thing is, and there is no court of appeal. And once that phenomenon and that transgression is attached to your name, there's really no way to appeal that.
It's interesting. I think you touched on this earlier, and you make that point in your article as well, that there is a place for it in society. When is cancel culture a necessary reaction?
I think it's really been, and again, it's weird. Like I find like most social phenomena these days, there's always like good and bad. I think if you're part of a traditionally marginalized or oppressed community, it is great at being able to express your sense of outrage about things that marginalize or oppress you. Say, for example, for George Floyd, social media in the aftermath of that terrible tragedy, it allowed people to sort of get some of the things off their chest, some really negative emotions, and it's allowed that kind of issue, which maybe 20 years ago it would have been a local phenomenon. It's become a huge international phenomenon. So again, it's emboldened these people, and it's raised people's awareness of some really fundamentally important issues about our societies.
Now, before you leave, your article begs the question: can we cancel culture? Should we cancel culture?
I don't think we can, like, from a top-down version. I think each one of us has to think about when we're online and we're not feeling our best and someone writes something that we disagree with, is there a way for us to engage with them in a pro-social way? For example, if someone says something really inflammatory, instead of flaming them online and writing something particularly nasty, potentially direct message them and say, I know you, I care about you, you're usually a fantastic person. You wrote this post, and I just don't understand where this is coming from. Could you please explain it? And I think if we, on an individual basis, do that, I think we can get the best of cancel culture, where marginalized and oppressed people can articulate themselves and create great social movements, but the worst impulses can be fought against.
That sounds so sensible. I don't know if you've met the internet.
I've seen it a couple times.
But it does. I see what you mean. It's sort of a different way to go forward.
Yeah. It's interesting. A friend of mine who's a lawyer, we used to study together. She's a lawyer. Her dad was a lawyer. She said that lawyers do one of two things. They either pretend that the law is like it's like a dog making a mess. You can either prevent the mess or you can clean up the mess. With social media, I think it's better to take a pause for a second and prevent your mess from happening, because once that genie gets out of the bottle, that genie does not want to get back in that bottle.
And I think what it is it also gets out of hand. Like, you can't control the genie. You're right.
Yeah, once these things gain a certain sense of traction, it is next to impossible to rein it in.
That's fascinating. Gosh, we'd love to have you back to tell us about other trends that are happening in social media, and I think for a longer discussion on this as well. Dino, thank you for joining us this morning.
Manjula, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Dino Sossi is a researcher and teacher of media and social media. He penned an article titled "Can We Cancel Culture?" that appeared on Collingwood Today, and it first appeared in The Conversation Canada. We've tweeted that out for anyone who wants to take a closer look at it. You're listening to Ontario Morning. I'm Manjula Salvaraja, sitting in for Julianne Hazelwood. The time is 7:48.